Promised tariffs on Canadian goods by incoming U.S. President Donald Trump would devastate BC's economy, costing billions of dollars and leading to hundreds of thousands of job losses. That, according to a new figures released today by Premier David Eby. For more, let's bring in Rob Shaw at the BC Legislature. Rob, some tough talk from the Premier today and some devastating numbers.
Well, that's right, Stacey. You heard the Premier likening this threat of tariffs from Donald Trump to economic warfare. Finance Minister Brenda Bailey today also releasing the first estimates of how all of this might sideswipe the provincial economy, given more than half of our exports go to the United States. Here's the Premier today.
Our country is under direct threat by the President-elect of the United States. It is a declaration of economic war, in my opinion. And in wartime, people need to come together and support each other. Whatever it takes to ensure we get the attention of the Americans, that we remind them about how their prosperity is our prosperity. They have no better ally in the world. Whatever it takes.
Here are the numbers, all preliminary, depending on if and when Trump follows through with his threat. A $69 billion hit to BC's economy over the next 3 years to start. The loss of 124,000 jobs, mainly in forestry, mining, oil and gas, manufacturing, transportation, and retail, the sectors most exposed to the Americans. That, in turn, would raise BC's unemployment rate from 6% to 7.1% within a year, and reduce corporate profits by as much as 7%, which then blows a hole of $2.5 billion in the provincial budget, which is already sitting at a $9.5 billion deficit.
Sharing this information with you is not to scare you. It is to reassure you that we understand the gravity of the threat to you and to your family, that our government is focused to ensure that we are protecting you and that we are responding to this threat with everything that we have.
Everything BC has could include counter tariffs and export bans on things like critical minerals, energy, and wood, part of a Canadian response. But Eby also today ordering a review of all government spending in his new mandate letters to ministers to try and cut costs, partly due to the deficit, but also to brace for Trump. He also raised the prospect of smaller provincial things like restricting American companies from bidding on government contracts, American alcohol from BC liquor stores, and American trucks traveling through to Alaska without a charge. The BC Conservative leader, John Rustad, saying all of this the wrong approach.
I think there's no question that the damage would be huge to British Columbia. Economically, people losing jobs, that would be devastating if we ended up in a trade war with the Americans. And that's why I'm totally opposed to the approach that David Eby is taking. What is wrong with protecting our borders? What is wrong with trying to stop the flow of fentanyl? It's the right thing to do for British Columbians. It's what Trump is asking. Why not do that as opposed to ramping up rhetoric of a trade war that we will only be the losers?
One casualty in this looming trade war, those grocery affordability checks the NDP promised in the election. The Premier said he was trying to rush out this year. When asked today multiple times if those $1,000 household checks were coming, the Premier backing away from that, saying he's got to focus on this first. An example, and perhaps, of BC not being able to afford the more than $1 billion cost of those checks. Stacey, exact details in the budget and more next week if Trump does follow through after becoming president with his promised tariff threats.